Moonfall, the latest film directed and co-written by Roland Emmerich, stars Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and John Bradley as the three title characters. So, this movie is one that, I'll be completely honest, I didn't have high expectations going in because, well, I think Roland Emmerich has made some good, fun, enjoyable movies. I feel like he's been resting on his laurels a bit. And, I talked about this, on the podcast about how he was criticizing Marvel, Star Wars, and DC for not relying on originality. I find that he's been working with the same formula for the last several years with Independence Day, Day After Tomorrow, Independence Day Resurgence, and now Moonfall. You look at those movies, and what do they have in common? They're either sci-fi, disaster, or both. So I think as much as I enjoy Independence Day from a nostalgic standpoint, this is no Independence Day. And I don't want to completely knock the movie as a whole because there are a couple of things that I liked about it. The three title characters, Patrick Wilson, Halle Berry, and especially John Bradley, they were good. Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry, I'll watch them in pretty much anything. Like I find myself enjoying them as actors, and I feel like they're going to bring you something good to the table, regardless of what they're in and how bad the movie might appear to be. But John Bradley's character, KC, was the star of this movie. I found myself enjoying his dialogue more than anyone, and the dialogue's not the most well-written that I've ever heard, but I found myself with his delivery. Like, I enjoyed every scene that he was in. But if you don't know the story of the movie, Brian Harper, played by Patrick Wilson, was kicked out of NASA for claiming a kaleidoscopic mechanical being knocked his ship off course before heading to the moon's surface. In present day, he's divorced from his wife, his son's a screw-up, he's in jail, and his wife is remarried to a car salesman, played by Michael Pena. Always like seeing Michael Pena in whatever he's in. His partner in crime on that same space mission, Jo Fowler, played by Halle Berry, she still works for NASA. She's divorced. She has a kid. And they encountered this conspiracy theorist, KC, played by John Bradley, as I mentioned, who has made the discovery that the moon has gone out of orbit and it's causing all kinds of calamity on Earth. It's knocking the tides and the gravity all out of whack. So they have to come up with a way to try and get the moon back into its current orbit. It has everything that you would really expect from a Roland Emmerich movie. It's got big explosions. It's got this huge scale of sets, of disasters, and, the fate of the world is at stake kind of thing. But it doesn't really have any substance other than enjoying KC. So it takes a bit for this movie to really get going. The movie is right around 2 hours long. I think the final runtime was 2 hours and 10 minutes. It took a little too long to get to the point where I felt like stuff was really hitting a crucial point. You had to introduce all these other characters and their backgrounds and everything, and I get that. But you don't really think of that when you think of a Roland Emmerich movie. And to be perfectly honest, besides the three main characters, I didn't find myself really rooting for anybody. By the end of it, I was disheartened when Tom, Michael Pena's character, dies, sacrificing himself to save one of his kids. But I didn't find myself really caring about anyone else. There's a certain point in the movie when our three main characters, they get on their ship and they launch to outer space to find out what's going on with the moon. We cut between that and what's going on down on the planet. And I felt like they were doing it way too much when I wanted to see what was going on in space and figure out what's the deal with the moon, because there was this theory all throughout the movie that KC was saying that the moon was actually built by aliens, that it's not an actual moon. So you're waiting to see what the resolution of that is. And then we get to the moon and we get this huge exposition dump about how humans are actually billions of years old, how they basically built a moon in order to find a planet that could sustain life and that their race could live on. And the giant, like kaleidoscopic mechanical being is actually an artificial intelligence created by humans that turned against them and is trying to wipe them out of existence. So we get all that dumped into us, and then the resolution happens. So I guess I was expecting maybe a little too much from this movie, even though like I knew going in that it probably wasn't going to be that great. But I thought to myself, maybe it won't be as bad as all the other reviews have been saying. And I try not to really read reviews, but it's tough to escape just little comments on Twitter and seeing headlines. Well, Moonfall crashes back down to Earth. And it didn't do really anything to help my expectations. And while I admit this movie is not entirely awful, it's probably got my vote for worst movie of the year that I've seen so far. If you're into disaster movies, you will probably enjoy it, but don't expect anything more than that. And it's really kind of sad to see that Roland Emmerich, 15, 20 years ago was a highly regarded director. I was having this conversation on Facebook the other day that years ago, the director was very important. The name of the director was very important on the headlines of the movies. And now it's really not that way. And it's kind of sad to see that he's not really trying anything new. If you try something new and it doesn't work, you can at least say you tried it, rather than stay in your niche and not really do it that well. So, yeah, Moonfall, I would pass on it, to be perfectly honest. Unless you're a really big fan of disaster movies, then you might enjoy it. But what's great about disaster movies is the silliness of it. But this didn't really have any silliness. It was taking itself way too seriously. And I don't think disaster movies should do that. So, yeah, Moonfall, I'd give it probably 4.5 out of 10. Not the worst movie I've ever seen, but definitely not that great.